Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be doing my October wrap up. Better late than never, but life stuff got in the way in October and yeah, but we're here now, so that's all that matters. So without further ado, let's hop straight into it. I only read 5 books in October, so let's quickly wrap up my stats. I read 1 ebook and 4 physical books. That's a lie, I actually read 1 ebook, 1 audiobook and 3 physical books. I read 4 3-stars and 1 4-star book in October. I read 1 middle grade, 3 YA and 1 adult. And I read 2 fantasy, 1 sci-fi and 1 contemporary romance. So yeah, those are my stats. Pretty out there for me because I read a fantasy and a sci-fi and only 1 contemporary, which is very strange for me. The first book I read in October was Ghost Squad by Claribel Ortega, I think is how you pronounce their name. I gave this book a 3 stars. It's basically a middle grade kind of a ghost story type book where 2 best friends go on ghost adventures through their town. The main character's father is a tour guide for their own ghost tour company, and then one day their father's business is kind of suffering, so the main character kind of goes on this hunt to kind of see what's up, why there are no ghosts in town, and kind of solve the mystery. I got very Coco from Disney Pixar, Scooby-Doo and Ghostbuster vibes from this book. So I gave this book a 3 stars. I think it was kind of down to reading the audiobook and not really connecting to the story or the characters very well. And because of that, I don't think the kind of atmosphere and the vibe translated very well for me. It didn't really feel that like ghosty or like spooky or Halloweeny, because obviously I did read it in October for that like spooky vibe, which I didn't really feel like that really happened in this book. It might just have been me, but just telling you my thoughts. So yeah, it was a good fun read to read at the beginning of October to get into the spooky vibe, but it was nothing special. However, I do think reading the physical book of it would have helped my enjoyment a lot more. The next book I read in October was Seasons of the Storm. This is a YA fantasy about a main character called Jack, who you start the story where he's about to die, but he gets saved by this kind of like unanimous figure, and you kind of don't know who that person is, but they give Jack a choice to either die there and then or survive and live forever as a winter. So this book basically follows the 4 seasons as actual people. So you have spring, summer, winter and autumn, and they have to fight one another in this world to allow the seasons to progress as nature kind of would intend them to. So a winter has to kill a spring, and a spring has to kill an summer, and then a summer has to kill an autumn, or something along the lines of that. Like each season has to kill another season to progress in this world. However, when Jack falls for Fleur, who's a spring, trouble kind of sets in and they have to escape this kind of rotational world they've been in for so long, to escape it, to be together, and their creator doesn't like it. So it's kind of a fight for survival type of book. I enjoyed this. I really enjoyed the nature superpowers that this book had. I've read a book that has similar sort of superpowers, and that's the Poison Princess series by Cressley Cole, I think. I read that book a very long time ago, but I used to absolutely love it, and that has nature superpowers as well. This book had very similar vibes in that aspect. I really enjoyed the main characters, Fleur and Jack, in this book, but I just feel like the world building wasn't done very well. Like, I'm not a fantasy reader, so don't take my word for it, because there's probably better fantasy people out there to review this book and kind of give a better review for it, I guess. But for me, I don't think the world building was very good. There was a lot of unanswered questions, like why was the world like this? Why was the creator like this? I don't think the questions were kind of answered, and I would have loved a lot more detail into why the world was like the way it is, so with all the seasons being people. I would have loved that. I just didn't get it in this book. I don't think it delivered. The idea was like a really good one. I love the idea and concept of this book. I just don't think it was executed very well. The stakes weren't that high. I just felt like it was just a mediocre book. It was fun to get through. I didn't hate it. I just didn't love it either. So I gave this book a 3 stars. The next book I read was Chasing Daisy by Paige Toon. If you didn't know and you're new to my channel, I've been trying to get through Paige Toon's backlist, with starting with her first original work, working my way up to her most recent release. This is basically a Formula 1 inspired romance where the main character works for the Formula 1 team in the catering sector, and she meets 2 of the Formula 1 racers and she kind of falls for both of them. And that's kind of like the main gist of the story. I felt this story very, very repetitive. It was a constant going to different countries for the Formula One racers to race, her catering. Going to a different country for races, her catering. Going to a different country to race, her catering. And each country, kind of the relationship between the two like love interests developed and developed more. And there was cheating in it. I don't like cheating in books when it's used as a plot point. It doesn't vibe well with me, and there's a lot of it in this book, and it just didn't seem necessary. Like, it could have been prevented really quite easily. It didn't need to be in there whatsoever. But I still read the book. It was still a fun read to read about, so I gave it a 3 stars. It's not my favourite Paige Toon book. There are a lot more other Paige Toon books that are so much better, i.e. The One We Fell in Love With, and 5 Years From Now. 5 Years From Now is actually on my shelf. It's one of my favourite contemporaries of all time. So definitely not my favourite Paige Toon work, but I just want to get through all her backlist because I do think of her as one of my favourite authors, because I do enjoy all of her books. Some are just better than others, and I think that's the case with most authors, to be fair. So yeah, that was the next book I read in, I was going to say August then, October. The next book I picked up was Date Me Bryson Keller by Kevin Van Whye. Now, as I pre-warn, this book has been plagiarised. It's been plagiarised from a Japanese manga called 7 Days. But I'm going to give you my full thoughts and feelings. But just be wary of that. I wouldn't recommend purchasing it. I don't think we should support the author. So this book basically follows a main character called Kai, I want to say his name is. Yeah. So this book basically follows a main character called Kai, who's kind of in the background. He's not like a popular kid at school, and he is a minority. He is mixed race, and he's part of the LGBTQ+ community. So when a popular guy in school called Bryson Keller at a party gets dared to go out with the first person who asks him each week. So if you're the first person to ask him, will you go out with me, Bryson Keller? Date me, Bryson Keller. Then he has to say yes, and they date for a week. That's kind of the dare. However, they never gave any rules as to it only had to be girls. So one day Kai was like, date me, Bryson Keller, and they start to form a relationship. And not gonna lie, it's a really cute romance. It's very Becky Albertalli's Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens. It's very much like Jenny Han's To All the Boys I've Loved Before. I did go into full depth of my thoughts and feelings of this book in my most recent reading vlog, which I'll link up here for you guys. But the author, Kevin Van Whye, does state all of these titles in the back in the author's note. However, on Goodreads, a lot of the community and the community that are more well versed in Japanese culture do say that it's pretty much word for word a copy of 7 Days, which is a Japanese manga. He does mention the manga in the author's note as well as the other titles I've mentioned, but this book definitely seems like it's been plagiarised, so I wouldn't pick it up. But I did really enjoy it. It was a very cute romance, and I did give it 4 stars. I am going to unhaul it I'm not going to support the author anymore, but I did guiltily enjoy this book quite a bit. I really wanted to give it 5 stars, but I know I couldn't, so I bumped it down to a 4. Probably still too high for the circumstances. We don't condemn the author's actions, so see you later, Date Me Bryson Keller, basically. And then the last book I read in, I keep wanting to say August. I don't know why, but the last book I read in October was a reread, and that reread was Cinder by Marrisa Meyer. I really didn't want to have to say this, but I didn't enjoy this book the second time round. My initial idea was to reread the 3 books in the Lunar Chronicles series that I had read, so I could finish off the series by reading Winter. So I've read already Cinder, Crest and Scarlet a couple of years ago now, and I just never got around to Winter. So I said to myself, I'll just reread the 3 books. I really, really enjoyed the series. I'll reread them and then I can get to Winter. I reread Cinder this month and I didn't enjoy it. I'm really, really sorry guys. I know this is a very popular book on BookTube, but I don't think the stakes were high. I didn't enjoy the atmosphere or the retelling as much the second time round, and that's kind of why I hate rereading books sometimes, because you can remember a book being like one of your all-time favourites and then you reread it and it's just not the same, and that's kind of sad. And that happened unfortunately with Cinder. It just wasn't. I think I'm kind of getting out of YA books. I don't know, a lot of YA recently has just not been hitting the mark for me. I think at 23 I might slowly be moving. Whoa. This book clearly didn't want to be hated. Yeah, I think slowly I'm moving more into the adult genre for sure and enjoying a lot more books in that genre. So I think some YAs now are just not hitting the mark. And unfortunately, The Lunar Chronicles is no longer one of the books that I want to keep on my bookshelves. So I'm actually unhauling all of them. Tea, I know. If you didn't know, this book basically follows a retelling of Cinderella, where Cinderella is a cyborg. She's called Cinder in this book, and she helps rebuild a kind of drone for the prince, and then she falls for the prince. You kind of know the Cinderella story, so you can kind of guess the plot for this book. I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't a bad read, it wasn't a brilliant read. I'm no longer interested in rereading Scarlet and Cress to read Winter. It's just kind of not top priority for me anymore, and it's a big series to keep on my bookshelves for no apparent reason, so I'm gonna unhaul the entire series. Tea! So those are the books I read in October. Not a great month for me reading wise, but still I read stuff, and that's the main point of reading, I guess. That didn't make any sense, but I read stuff and that is good. Basically. I'm going to leave you guys here before I continue to ramble anymore. What did you read in October? What was your favourite book you read of this month? I would love to know, so leave it in the comments below. Make sure you check out all my social media links in the description underneath me, and I will see you in my next video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys.